All right. Thank you all for joining us. Let me mute. Judy, if I can find you, I'm going to make you co-host so you can help keep us straight. All right. So welcome everyone to our July voter services training. This is the first one that we've had this year with the election year and it's what we'd like to do is provide training across the state for everyone that's out doing voter registration so that you can, that we're all basically working and sharing what we, hold on just a minute. Let me make sure. Yeah, it is recording. Judy, if you'll let people in, that would be good. All right, so the first thing that we were going to start out with, I wanted to share, first of all, share with you some advice that we received when we were updating our bylaws about protecting all of our volunteers are out doing good work, basically Good Samaritan, out helping people get ready to vote. We want to make sure that we're protected though, because it's not, we don't want any of our volunteers to run into trouble. So when we went and visited with our lawyer on nonprofits and how we know we're protected, the first thing that he advised was that we update our bylaws to include the indemnification clause into our bylaws. And so I'm about to show you what we put in our Alabama League bylaws and Alabama Education Fund, League of Women Voters of Alabama bylaws. And this is really just stating what protections all volunteers get. And let me pull it up. All right, so this right here is a statement you see in blue. This is what we have in bylaws, and I'm gonna read it to you. And it says existing state and federal laws provide significant protection to nonprofits and individual volunteers. The League is empowered to indemnify its trustees and directors, volunteers, and agents to the extent provided and within the limitations imposed by the Alabama Code Title VI Civil Practices 6-5-336, which used to be known as the Volunteer Service Act, and also protected by the Federal Volunteer Immunity Act of 1997, known as the Volunteer Protection Act. And I will show you those sections. I put the links in here, and I'll drop that in the chat in just a minute. And if
can we get you to, excuse me, can you email us copies of what you just read?
I will put that when I send out the recording of this session, I will cut and paste it I will put that into the note that I send out to everybody. And that's just the text that we put into our bylaws.
Thank you.
Judy, if there are people that are not muted, can you mute them? All right. And I wanted to show you let me share my screen. If I can go right here. So when you go to that link, you'll see this basically covers what we do. And it's an Alabama law that protects volunteers. And it's, for example, if you read the legislature finds and declares that, and it gives, it basically protects what we do from we will not get in trouble based on doing something. If someone complains, we're protected because this gives us protection for what we do. It says the contributions of programs, activities, services to communities is diminished, and worthwhile programs, activities, and services are deterred by the unwillingness of volunteers to serve as volunteers or as officers, directors, or trustees of nonprofit, public, and private organizations. And then also Provisions of this section are intended to encourage volunteers to contribute their services for the good of their communities and at the same time provide a reasonable basis for redress of claims which may arise from those services. And you can read through there here when you go to the link, you can read the definitions of terms. The other one, shoot, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to close it completely. The other one is, this is the federal law, and it's basically similar. It just gives you, this is why, this is what gives us protection when we do what we do. And I wanted to mention that one of the reasons that we have stood down from providing assistance on absentee applications is because right now, you know, there are some real vague terminologies in the absentee ballot application process, which we feel could put our organization and our volunteers at risk. And so until we get a stay or an injunction against the implementation of the laws that were put in place by SB 1, or, you know, or the law gets thrown out, then we're going to not be able to do absentee ballot application assistance. But we can get out the vote, and we can do voter registration and all the other stuff that we always do. But because, you know, this volunteer protection is there to protect us when we are doing, you know, what's allowed by law. All right. So that was really just trying to give you, and Betty, I'm going to put all this in the email that comes out after we're done. Right now we're going to switch gears, and Roger Ellis, who is on the state board, he is our voter services training lead, and he's going to go through the voter registration. And then after he's finished, then Bryan is going to talk. He's our VRR state coordinator and lead. He is going to talk about, if you find someone that needs rights restoration, then he's going to talk to you about how you can get assistance from the experts that we have in the network. So Roger, why don't you take it from here? Roger, you're on mute.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to attend this training session on registering to vote. My name is Roger Ellis, and I'm the chairman of the Voter Services Committee with the League of Women Voters Alabama. We're going to be talking about how to register voters using the voter registration form and registering it online. If you can, please wait until the presentation is over to ask questions or write them down as we go along, because I might be answering them as I go through the presentation. Our agenda today will be, where can I get an Alabama voter guide? Who can register to vote in Alabama? What if my situation changes? How to register to vote using the form. We'll be going through the voter registration form. Who can register to vote online? How to register online, or use a QR code to make it easier. What happens after I register to vote, a summary, and then get in the game and not the sideline. We'll have some frequently asked questions, and you can ask questions after the presentation. So to get things started, where can I get the Alabama voter guide? You can go to your local registrar's office, and they usually have it sitting on a table as you walk in there. Or you can download a copy on this URL. If you need more than 15 copies, let's say you have a voter services event, you can send an email to the warehouse at bernard.mccaster@sos.alabama.com. And we'll be using the Alabama voter guide for reference. Now, who can register to vote in Alabama? One has to be a citizen of the United States, live in Alabama, not barred from voting due to a disqualifying felony conviction, have not been declared mentally incompetent by a court, and when you turn 17 and a half years old, but would turn 18 years old on or before the election. Except during the 14 days prior to an election, you can register, but won't be processed until after the election. It's very important to remember the 14 days prior to an election, especially if one mails a registration form. Alabama does not have a party registration law. Therefore, you don't have to declare a party. For example, right now, the Huntsville municipal elections are taking place on August 27th of this year. The voter registration cutoff date to register to vote in this election is August 13th, 2024. Now, the voter turned 17 and a half on February 1st of this year. If that voter wanted to vote in the 27th election, they would have to be registered to vote before the August 13th, 2024 cutoff date, and then turn 18 years old on or before the election date of August 20th, 7th, 2024. Now, what if your situation changes after you register to vote? If you have moved to a new address, you will need to update your voter registration by registering to vote. If there is a name change due to getting married or divorce and going back to your maiden name, you will also need to register to vote again. Be aware, if you register to vote at the Division of Motor Vehicles office, it may take a week to 10 days for the DMV to submit the voter registration form. Remember the 14-day prior to an election cutoff date. Now, how to register to vote using the form. How do I obtain a voter registration form? You can go to your local registrar's office and get a form, or you can go to the Secretary of State website at this URL. That's where we'll be going. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what the website looks like. And when you scroll down, you see the three icons here. You have the register
Roger, we can't see that. When you clicked, I don't know why. We checked it earlier.
Wait a minute.
It's probably in a different window on his computer. You probably have to share a different. I assume it popped up separately.
There it goes. See it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And then here, when you scroll down, you have three icons. You have the online registration, fillable PDF, or you can mail in the form. And once again, you can submit the application, and this is send it to the state Secretary of State office. So we're going to do the fillable PDF form. You see that? Okay. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, this is the form. And the first thing you need to do when you see this form or fill it out, they have these two little boxes up here. One is you're a citizen of the United States, and you'll be 18 years old on or before election day. These two boxes have to be checked. If it's not checked, the registrar office is not going to process the form. And this is the number one item that gets missed when somebody fills out the form. And then we have your name. Fill that in. Now this area is used if you have a name change. Just like I mentioned before, if you got married and you change your name to the husband's name, you fill that out. And then you have your date of birth. And this is the second most missed item on this form when a registered voter fills this out, or a voter fills it out. And yes, please put your phone number in there, because if there's a problem, they can call you and get it and address it to you, give you a call. And it's possible, if you can fit your email in there, try and do that. But sometimes I've seen people go way over the line to put that in. And here, if you have an Alabama driver's license, this is where you put the license in. Or if you have your last four of your social security, say you haven't gotten an Alabama license, or you forgot it or left it in the car and you want to register to vote, you can use the last four of your social security number. Okay, now we have the addresses. Your home address is where you actually live, or sometimes they say where you actually sleep. Now, in this area, this is address where you receive your mail. We've been working with assisted living facilities where the voters have been moved into the facilities, but they want their children to receive their mail. So this is what they use this for. Now, if you move into the area and you need to change your address, they want to know where you came from, your formal address. So let's say we moved from Tennessee to Alabama. So my former address would be 124. That's where you put your formal address. Now here, if you have the sex, these boxes are not required. If you feel like filling this out, or if the voter wants to fill it out, it's up to them. It's the same as a race box. And I've seen people get confused with this. And like I said, it's not a required field. The place of birth is a required field. Now, some voters have a hard time. They can remember that city and the state they were born in, but they can't remember the county. So they just going to have to do the best they can to figure out that address. Now, some voters live like way out right in the rural areas or a big farm area, and they might not know how to get out there. You can draw a map in this area to give them an idea of where you live. And did you receive assistance? Now, if you help the elderly or somebody who's handicapped or disabled or has Parkinson's or arthritis, this is where you fill this in. That's what happens. They'll call you to see how much you had to help them and who you helped them to verify that. And once again, here's your voter declaration. It's basically you're taking an oath that you registered to vote. And then you have your signature, and then you put your date. Now, what you can do is print this out and go ahead and sign it and put the date on it. But when you sign it, make sure you sign it legibly so that the registrar office can read your signature. And also what's nice about this form, if you don't know where your registrar office is, they have all the counties listed on the form, like mine's Madison County. So you can either mail it to that address or have it delivered there or whatever. Okay, can you see this one slide? Okay. Now who can register to vote online? If you have an Alabama driver's license or not,
Roger, you need to
Roger,
switch back to the other presentation.
yeah, sorry, I thought you were talking about the slide you were on, but
oh,
yeah, I didn't know which one. I'm not sure why it's not working unless it's share screen.
There you go. You're good.
okay. Okay, that's how you register online. You have to have an Alabama driver's license or non-driver's identification card. And where do you go to register online? Well, here's a URL for that. And this is the front page for this. You can see where it says, once again, they're asking you to be a U.S. citizen, living in Alabama, be 18 years of age, not barred from voting for a disqualification felony, and must not have been judged mentally incompetent. As you scroll down, you'll see here, you are not registered to vote until County Board Registrars reviews and approves your application. Now, I'm just going to go to the first page here to let you see what it looks like. Again, there's the 3 items you have to check. You're a citizen, you're 18, and a valid driver's license. Of course, you got to prove you're not a robot. But instead of going through this, I'm going to use the slides. This will be the next page on that form. It's to be your identity, and you can see where you put your name and your last name, your date of birth, your Alabama driver's license, or optional, you put your social security number. You have your contact information, like we talked about before, your mailing address, like we just talked about, again, they'll ask for your phone number or your email. Again, these are optional. You don't have to fill them out, but you do have to fill out your place of birth. And if you do the best you can, your city or the state you live in. That previous information, I kind of like the way they did that because they got everything all on one page. Again, if you had a maiden name or former name, if you got married or got divorced, you can use this page. And again, when you moved, you can use a previous residence address. You get a page that confirms all the information you've input onto this page. So it's a good idea to review it, make sure everything's spelled correctly, that we have the right addresses. Again, you have the pledge again. And when you hit set, and down here, when you get typed your full name, you type your name down there. And then you hit submit application. When you submit the application, another page will pop up and you have a number on that page. And it's a good idea if you're using your phone to take a picture of that number, or if you're using a laptop like me, you can do a print screen in case you run into any problems. You can always refer that as a confirmation number. Now, what we do out in the field, we use a QR code. If you know somebody who knows how to do this, it's really convenient and saves a lot of time. And you don't have to stand there and ask the voter all these questions. So what happens after I register to vote? Your voter registration form must be approved by the County Board of Registrars. Once approved, you should get a voter identification card from the registrar's office telling you where your polling location will be. This is kind of how it's going to look. This is the one from Mobile County, Alabama. And you can see they have your voting center. There's on Sage Avenue Baptist Church. And what's nice, they also list all your different districts, your county districts, mobile state districts, congressional districts on it. And when you get this card, make sure the
I got to leave the meeting.
Make sure you confirm all the information on it. So what we talked about how to obtain the Alabama voter guide. We mentioned you can register to vote in Alabama. Changes in one situation, updating the voter information, how to access and use the voter registration form, how to register online, or who can register online, and what happens after one registers to vote. Now, this is a problem we have countrywide. You know, you either get in the game and not sit on the sideline when it comes to vote. This is a pretty good cartoon about that. People who register to vote are not voting, and we can't, as many people as we talk to, we can't get that figured out, why they want to vote. But if you make the time and effort to register, you should make the time and effort to get out and vote. So here's some frequently asked questions. If I want to register to vote, but I want to turn 18 until next month, do I have to wait till 18 years old to register? No, this is a myth going around young people. One can register to vote at 17 and a half. Sometimes when you ask a young person if you register to vote, the first thing they say, I'm not 18 yet. If you ask when you turn 18, 2 weeks from now. Yeah, this kind of reply to, and they don't know. And it's good to talk to these people and educate them on that. I just moved to another part of the city and I've been voting in my polling place and don't want to change. Can I just drive to my old polling location to vote? No, you can't do that. That's voter fraud. You have to update your address in the voter registration form. There's a section on the voter registration form pertains to race. My father was Hispanic, my mother was white. Do I have to check both boxes? No, it's not a required field. Just check other or just leave it blank. So, do you have any questions?
If folks will, if you'll go off share, I can help you find people when they raise their hand. All right, all right, Carol Prickett.
Roger, can I type this information in for the registrant, or do they have to do it themselves?
Well, on the form, that's online, so you could type it in and then print it out.
The only
And
thing
it's
you
the same-
can't do is sign it,
The
right?
same with the online registration. You just type it in, and then once you type in your signature at the bottom and hit submit, they'll get that.
But you can't sign it for them.
No, you
And
can't do that.
that's the thing, you can't do that. But everything
No.
else you can fill in, and then you fill in the I helped this voter.
Right. Yeah, sometimes I've had cases they could put an X in there. And then you have to fill out that information about assistance.
Hi, Roger, thank you. It's Helena. It's been a while since I've done a voter registration. And so when we're in an event, where do we get that QR code to help the person registering?
Well, right now, our media came up with that idea and they made the QR code for us.
Okay.
So if you know somebody, somebody in media or pretty good with making QR codes, that's how you can do it.
Or
Yeah.
Roger, you can just send it to them. It's
Oh, yeah,
to
you
the
can send it to them too. Right.
So is it going to be distributed to the volunteers at the events where we're registering people?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have that and the other to look up the information.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Kent
Yep.
Dijon, you're next.
Hi, Roger. Thanks
Ken?
a lot for a great presentation.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I understand that if I am using my computer to help somebody fill out an online form,
Mhm.
I can do that as long as they type in their own
Right.
signature name. Is that the way
Right.
that
They have to be the one to type it in. You
Okay.
can't do that.
All right. So the next question I had is, do you know, I was trying to figure out from the presentation if that online security form is encrypted because we're sending folks' driver's license and other PII across the interwebs. Otherwise, I was just kind of curious if you had
I
seen whether
I
that.
don't have an answer to that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this was an app that was come up with several years back by the Secretary of State, and they're maintaining it.
All
All
right.
right. Was that it, Kit?
That's it.
All right, Pia?
Yes. One thing I think that needs to be emphasized is too that you're only disenfranchised if you have been convicted for violent crime, felony, right? A non-violent, you're not disenfranchised. So drug possession or drug trafficking is non-violent. You still can vote. the second thing I wanted to ask, like on that online, on that first screen where you have to check the third one, if you have a valid Alabama driver's license or an equivalent, if I
Mhm.
don't check that, will that cause a problem?
On the online screen,
Yeah,
yes, you have to have an Alabama license.
but on the next screen, you can enter your social security number as an alternative. So, and if you're, I think you have
What-
3 months to get your Alabama driver's license when you move. So if I don't have one and leave that unchecked,
Oh, that's an optional thing, though. It's not required.
okay, that's what I
Whereas the
wanted to
Alabama-
know.
yeah,
Will that
Whereas the license is
cause any
required.
problems? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't, yeah, that's. Pia, Brian's gonna talk more on the list of moral turpitudes, because he'll talk about what's on the list. But, that's the list they're referring to, and we'll talk more on that in a minute. Suzanne, your hand's up.
Yeah, I was wondering, when we were doing the voter registration things before, we were able to collect them, and at the end of the day, we would take them over in an envelope to the registrar's office. Are we still allowed to do that, or do they have to take their own to the registrar's office?
No, I've been taken to the registrar's office. What they ask you to do, though, is write your name and what organization you're from and how many you're turning in. That's what they do here in Madison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, from the chat, let me go back and look. And Janine, I see you. Sorry, I didn't change the settings, so you could change your name. I guess Freya was talking about a poster for young people. Do you want to come off and mention that, or I guess everybody could read it? Okay. All right.
Kathy, can I comment for a minute?
Sure.
There's a little bit confusion. The form does say you have to be 18, but let's say we did a voter registration now. They in their birthday, where their birthday was right now, they could still go ahead and register. It'll just be held till they turn 18. So
Right.
you don't have to be 18 by the election day. You just have to be 17 after to submit the form. Now, if you did that today, if today was your birthday, you wouldn't be eligible for the next election, but you would be registered after that.
Correct.
Yeah, the Secretary of State has directed all of the registrars to hold applications from young people until they turn 18 at 17 and a half, no earlier, 17 and a half or older. They will hold their registration, and on their birthday, they will issue a voter registration card to them. That's how I got my daughter registered when she was in high school. So it is something that's a very handy thing to do if you're doing voter drives at high schools. Roger, thank you. This has been excellent. And I think there's no other questions in the chat on this. And so we'll switch gears, and Brian, he'll pick up, and we may end up having some crosstalk back to what Roger was presenting, but Brian, you carry on.
All right. Can you see this? I'd share my screen. Is that showing up?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good. And let me.
Did you need me to pull up that video?
In just a minute, let me get introduced, started, and I'll tell you when I want the video. Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Bryan Lorge. I'm the statewide lead for voting rights restoration. And on the bottom of this screen is my email address and phone number. If you have questions at any time, feel free to contact me. And in an ideal world, I would have everyone that works for the League of Women Voters and Voting Registration Drives know this entire process, be able to do everything, evaluate cases. I know that's not practical. But what I'm hoping is at the end of this, everybody that does voter service drives will at least have the knowledge of what this is and how to get people. We have a network set up where you can submit information either by text or text message or There's a form you can send in, and we'll get it to someone that can help them. So again, right now, this is just basically awareness training, let people know how the process works. I'd love for you all to become experts, but just as long as you have the basic knowledge, that's kind of my goal here. What I'm going to cover in this, in just a minute, we're going to show a video of that I think describes this whole process and why we do it. Then I'll briefly get into how we got here. I'll give you a list of what a disqualifying felony is. We'll kind of just very quickly go over the process we use to evaluate a citizen status. I'm going to mention something called the Alicorp, which is our data source recently. And the last thing is HB 101 is going to kind of make everything murky a little bit. And I'll try to explain that as best I can. So having said that, Kathy, I guess I will stop sharing if you can show the video. Or
Yes, and then I'll share. Hold on. Let me know if you can hear it.
Not being able to vote or participate in a democratic society.
I hear it, but can you make it louder?
Like a ghost.
Listen.
Like I don't exist.
I work, I pay taxes, I do all the things that everybody else do. But when it comes down to voting,
I can't hear it.
About
Hold on. You can't hear it at all?
I can barely hear it. I can hear something, but I can't hear what he's saying.
Is that true for everybody? I'm wanting to make sure that I'm
Yes, it's not loud enough, Kathy.
all right. Let me see if I can
Turn up the volume.
I'm trying to figure.
Well, this is Nancy Sales. In a late reply to Roger, may I, if you're working on that volume, Roger, yes, it does. It says Alabama driver's license number,
Yes.
but the state IDs also have numbers. And I've always been concerned about the fact that we say driver's license as though everyone has one, and many don't, or at least some don't. So I'm just saying, I think the state ID also qualifies. Number one, because I think I've read that, unless things have changed a great deal, but also because they do have numbers in the same way that the driver's license do. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing that may help with the audio is if individually you go to the audio button down at the bottom left, click on audio settings, and then look at your output volume, make sure it goes all the way to the right.
Yeah, Susan, I just tried that with mine. So we'll see if it's better for me, but we'll see if it works for everybody else. All right, here we go again. Let me stop share, make sure I shared it right. Yep.
Not being able to vote or participate in a democratic society, emotionally it makes me feel like a ghost, like I don't exist.
I work, I pay taxes, I do all the things that everybody else do. But when it comes down to voting, I can't voice my opinion about anything that really matters.
I paid my debts to society.
It's not any better.
Why can't I have my rights back to vote?
I still can't understand it.
All right, well, we'll just send, the link is in the chat. And I apologize because I've turned my volume up all the way. And I turned the volume on YouTube up all the way. So I don't know what else to do. So Bryan, I think we're just gonna have to just go without it.
I also had a question for Roger, but something happened to my screen. So.
Go ahead.
The question was, what if you're registering a college student and their home address is not in the same town that they're in, like you're at their school, and they're going to school in some city or town other than their hometown. So do they have to go home to vote?
It's up to them. We have,
Well, what would they do to make it so that they could vote there at their school?
well, they would have to use,
Is that a
they would have,
possibility?
they would have to use a school address. Well, here, like we have UAH right here, and we ask them, did you want to go home and vote? Or did you want to still vote in your same district? And they can use an absentee ballot to do that.
So you have to do an absentee ballot if you are going to vote at school and not
Yes.
go home. Okay.
Right.
That's if they,
It's up to the student.
Jane, that's what he's getting at, is the fact that you need to have that conversation with them about, do they want to be voting where they're going to be at when the election happens?
Right.
Or do they want to have to order an absentee ballot?
Where they want their vote to count.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank
Brian. All right, we're going to switch gears back, Brian, and everybody can watch that video, which is really powerful. And it's at the top of the chat. And I'll also include it in the minutes, in the notes with the video link.
And Kathy, while you mentioned that, I think when you send them out, if you could also send out this, the flyer we have that has the disqualifying felonies and the process, because they aren't going to be able to read it on the screen.
Yeah, I'll make a note.
And the referral form.
Yes, I'll do.
Because again, you won't be able to read them, so it will help if you'll send them that. If we could have seen the video, let me give you just a couple quick numbers. And these are estimates, the best numbers we can get. Sometimes it's hard to get this information, but the estimates, there's around 328,000 Alabamians that have a felony conviction. So that's almost 9% of the state population.
Oh.
Out of those, we think about 200,000 do not have a disqualifying felony, so they could vote right away, but they just don't know it, and they haven't registered. And there's about 130,000 we think that are eligible, that may be eligible to have their rights restored, but again, they don't know about the process. And one of the other worst parts is estimated 15 to 16% of the African American population is currently disenfranchised. So that's obviously a significant portion. And that would all be, if you watch the video, you'll get all that information. I'm going to do this very quickly. Starting when they did the Alabama Constitution in 1901, it's very clear that was a racist document. And in that document, one of the sections said, well, Alabama Constitution 1901 disenfranchised citizens with convictions of crimes of moral turpitude. However, they never defined what those crimes were. And just the part about it being racist. And this is a quote from John B. Knox, who was an Anniston attorney who presided over that Constitutional Convention. And what it is that we want to do, why it is within the limits imposed by the federal Constitution to establish white supremacy in the state. So it's pretty obvious from back then they put in racist language. The disqualifying felony list it limits the convictions. There's actually, I think, about 48 crimes that were okay. Excuse me, I skipped the part. So there was not a definition until this definition of moral turpitude act in 2017, and it limited the convictions that disqualify a person from voting to around 48 crimes. And it's important to note that the disqualifying list does not include any drug-related crime except for trafficking. And also, the list does not include many of the third-degree convictions, like burglary third degree is not disqualifying. Burglary first and second degree is. And crimes prosecuted under youthful offender statute are not disqualifying. It also does not include many white-collar crimes like fraud and embezzlement. And again, that goes back to a little bit even in 2017. A lot of the crimes they included are probably be considered racist. What they included or didn't include. Again, it talks about 139,000 citizens that we could re-enfranchise through the SERV process, and I'll talk about it in a minute. And in 2018, a survey found that 70% of unregistered Alabamans with criminal convictions did not know the law had changed. And I don't think that number's gone up much since 2018. So there's still a lot of people out there do not know about these changes, and they may be able to vote. And this is one there. This is a flyer that we developed by the League of Women Voters. I know you can't read it on the screen, so we'll make sure we include copies of it when we send it out. But this is the first page, and it kind of groups. So we set up kind of like a stoplight chart. Red, which is stop, you can't register. That is, if you have an uncommuted death sentence, or you were impeached, or found guilty of treason, you've permanently lost your voting rights. Then the next one down in kind of the orange color is if you have one of those crimes, you have to get a pardon before you can get your voting rights restored. And I'll really quickly, that list is not that long. It's enticing a child for immoral purposes, incest, murder, parents or guardians permitting children to engage in obscene matter, possession of obscene matter, possession with intent to distribute child pornography, production of obscene material, rape, sexual abuse or torture, sodomy, or soliciting a child by electronic means. Any of those crimes would require a pardon to get your voting rights restored. And then there's a group of about 40, and in just a minute, I'm going to make this kind of murky because of a recent law change, but there's about 40 that crimes, if you were convicted of any of those, you get your rights restored. And if anyone can read this, good luck. But this is a list, and we will also send this out. This is a list of the disqualifying felonies. I'm not going to read this, it's too long. It's too long. But right at the end of the last legislative session, they made a change to this list. And when you get this, you'll see there are some are listed in blue. Those were what I call the original list. The ones that have an asterisk on it and are black, highlighted in black, those are 6 new disqualifying felonies that they added right at the end of the last session. And the other thing, this is where I need a law degree. Previously this year, what they call inchoate crimes, which is if you attempted a crime, conspired to commit a crime, or solicited someone to commit a crime, those were not considered disqualifying. They have now gone back and added all disqualifying, the original list of disqualifying felonies. You actually had to commit the crime previously to have it disqualifying. Now, if you even just, I say, do either try to attempt it, conspiracy, or solicitation, it is now on the list. So it's gotten a lot more confusing. And we work with the Campaign Legal Center quite a bit, and we have sent a letter asking the Secretary of State for some clarifying guidance, and this, again, changes and how we're proceeding right now. If you don't have if you don't have a crime that's listed, any of those felonies either on the original list or the new list, you can just go ahead and tell the people to register to vote. So that's really no change. If someone had a crime that was on the original list and they're eligible for a certificate of eligibility to register to vote, and I'll get into that in a minute, we are continuing like we have. The biggest difference, if an individual has a disqualifying felony that's on the new list, we're just going to kind of keep their information set aside and wait till we get clarifying guidance before we proceed. I mean, things that make this bill confusing. The bill itself has an effective date of October 1st, 2024, but that violates the Alabama Constitution because about a year ago, they passed something that said anything that affects a general election has to be implemented 6 months before the general election. And this guidance was passed after that deadline. So we're awaiting Secretary of State guidance. And another thing is, before anyone asks me, we don't know if they're going to go back and make, if you committed one of these crimes 20 years ago, have been registered to vote, you come up here, are they going to say you are now lost your registered vote? So again, it's one of the things that makes this a little bit more confusing. This is a flow chart we use, and it kind of describes the process it takes to determine if someone has a disqualifying felony. And the good news about it, if I can understand this process, I'm sure all of you can. So, and again, I'm just providing probably too much information for this. I'm going to go through this process. You don't need to understand this entire process to be able to help us with our VRR effort. And I'm going to, so the question of disqualifying felon, I'm going to start with the good news, which is this column right over here under no. Again, if they don't have a crime that's on the list of a disqualifying felony, just go ahead and they can register to vote. If they do have one of those crimes, then we get over to this side and it gets a little bit more complicated again. If they do have a disqualifying conviction, but they meet this criteria, then they can apply again for what we call a certificate of eligibility to register to vote. And again, the first thing, it can't be one of those convictions that requires either a pardon or you can't register. You can't have any felony charges currently pending. And again, that's any felony charges, not a disqualifying felony. You can't have any outstanding fines, fees, or restitution from the disqualifying conviction. And you have to have completed your sentence to include probation or parole. Now, if you meet those 4 conditions, then you say we can apply for the certificate of eligibility to register to vote. If you don't, there's still some hope, but I don't know. Okay, on the first part, on the serve, if you meet the criteria, you just have to fill out, there's a form, and I'll show you the form in a minute. Submit that to the Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles, and within 44 days, you should hear back. They should give you a determination letter. And it should be, you can take that to your vote, the board of registration and vote. If you don't meet the criteria because of outstanding fines and fees, and I'll show you this form again in a minute, you may ask the Board of Pardons and Paroles to remit your outstanding fees. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know of a case where we've actually requested this and it's been granted. And some of these, unlike the serve where they have the Board of Pardons and Parole has 44 days to respond, on this there is no time limit. And we've had some requests in for, I think it's over 3 years now, and I've never gotten an answer back. And again, if you were convicted of one of those crimes that require a pardon, I'll show you the pardon form also. All right, this is a certificate of eligibility to register to vote application. And then I'm going to talk, Kathy, we can send these out, or if not, they are available on the Board of Pardon and Parole's website.
I'll add that list to the list as far as a link to the pardons and parole. But I think that's kind of, this is for people who were actually need it. We're going to be helping them directly.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not, this is not, I think we need to, just as for information only.
Yeah, that's true. This is just information. If you want to get into this, we'll be glad to help you. But again, you don't need this. Kathy's right. You don't need this level. The serve application is pretty straightforward. You just fill out the information about what about the person that's trying to get the serve and what the crime, which are the disqualifying felonies. Put it in, like I say, and they have 44 days to respond to this. So, and this process works fairly well. Occasionally, you run into some glitches where their information may vary from ours. We have to iron out, but this process works pretty well. This is the form for remission of fines and fees. And again, this is one, I'm almost at the point where I'm going to take this out of the presentation because it doesn't take a lot of time to submit it, but like I say, we've not been successful getting that. And this is the form that talks about pardons. And my personal advice is if someone's going to seek a pardon, get some legal help from an attorney. Now, we do have people that have volunteered and they have submitted pardon requests, and they've actually had them granted, so it doesn't require an attorney. But you have to understand, you submit for a pardon, there will be an investigation and hearing. And if I'm going to have a hearing by the Board of Pardons and Paroles, I think I want to have legal representation there. Real quick, I'm not going to get into Aliquot. We do have a separate training. It takes a little over an hour on the Aliquot. And again, you don't have to have this to do the thing, to do VR services, but it makes it easier. It's a system that's available through the Alabama court system. I'll be honest with you, it's pretty tedious to use. When you go in to look at someone, it includes all the court records someone has, including traffic court, district court, circuit court. Again, and circuit court and district courts, most of the disqualifying felonies. So there's a lot of information you have to weed through just to get to what you need. And I'll be honest with you, some of the cases I've worked are very simple, and I trust myself. If it's complicated cases with lots and lots of information there, lots of times I will ask someone else just to review it to make it sure that I've got it right. And again, it's not something you have to provide services. Having said that, anyone out there, if you're interested in getting into it, we're always looking for more volunteers. I just wanted to show, this is one screenshot from Alicord, just to give you an idea of what it is. This is, you go in and there's a whole bunch of tabs. This is one about the charge and disposition, which is probably the most important one. And again, just getting too much in the weeds, but it's not what charges were filed, but what's here, the disposition charge. So in other words, if they originally charged you with something that would be disqualifying, but you played it down, or they found you guilty of something that's not disqualifying, it's whatever you were found guilty of or pleaded guilty to determines whether it's disqualifying or not. One of the other things that makes this a little bit complicated, you'll see the narrative of what the crime is, but the way the law is written, it goes down here what they call the citations of the site. So you really have to look at the site numbers to compare it to the list to determine if it's disqualifying. And again, on this, I'm not going to show tabs, but on here, there's a tab that says sentence, which will tell you that's where you can go to find out information if they completed their entire sentence, including probation or parole. And on the financial screen over here, that's where you can get information about the fines, fees, and restitution to find out the status. On this one, this is the referral form, and this is a form we really developed pretty much for the people that are out there on the front lines to gather information if you're working with someone, they need help. And then the top part, it says complete this section only. I mean, that's the only section we really need. It says your full name, date of birth. If there's anything different, it's important for us to do the research. We have the legal name, so if they put a different name for up front top, but when they were in the court system, they have a different legal name. We need that. It helps to know which county the potential disqualified felony was. And again, get a phone number. It's okay. Text them. That if we get just to that top section, we can do what we need to do. So if you're working with someone, you just get that information and want to submit it. And I'll talk about that and how we get it. That's all we need. And again, that's just the basic information. If you feel comfortable about, we have a section for the volunteer to complete, and it's just answers basically the same questions. They'll sit and have a partisan only conviction, and you can say no, yes, no, or unsure. And it tells you if the answer is no, then you go to the next question, which says, does citizen have a serve eligible conviction? The same thing, yes, no. And the last question, which I haven't talked to, if they have any convictions from another state or from federal, we have to do a comparison. And I say we, that's Campaign Legal Center. We'll do a comparison. And if it's equivalent to the Alabama charge, then it would be disqualifying. But it's not equivalent, then it wouldn't be. Again, that's bottom sections for the volunteer. We don't need that information. And if you feel like you can put it in there, and that's great. And the way we like to do it, you can either take fill this form out, take a screenshot, and you can text it to us. That number's on the form. Or what I prefer, and I guess it's because I'm getting old and can't see as well, if you have the ability to scan the form and email it to me, it's usually a little bit more legible. And one other thing we set this form up for, if you're out at a voter service event and you've already made a connection with someone and want to stay with it, you can tell us on the form, please answer to me, and we'll let you go back and talk to the person and give them the information. Or if you want us to go directly back to the person, we have that option. You can say, please go get in contact. If we need more information, we can work it either way. We can go back to the volunteer and say, can you get this information? Or again, we can talk directly with the person. Just some tips from kind of help treat these people properly. We want everyone to be respectful with their language that you use to talk to these people. A lot of our people, but there are people who refer to these people like, don't refer to them as cons, ex-cons, felons. I usually refer to them as formerly incarcerated individuals. You can talk to them as people with felony convictions, but again, be sensitive to the fact you know, and that people are usually embarrassed about the situation, and we just want to treat them with respect. We want to respect their privacy. We don't need to know all the nitty-gritty details of what happened. Again, we need the basic information so we can do our research. We need people to be patient when you're working with them. I've been talking to people that theft crimes happened 20 plus years ago and they don't remember all the details. That's fine. It makes it a little bit more difficult. But as long as we get as much information we can, then we can go in and try to research it and get the answers we need. Again, do not pry into their personal business. That we don't need that to be able to do this. Sometimes they've been given incorrect information, and with that, lots of times I'm getting back. You know, people think, "Oh, I have a felony conviction. I haven't. I can't vote," or they may be getting. They may not know about the change that occurred in 2017. They may have tried to. You can. So we just need to make sure they have the most current, up-to-date information. One of the things I do when I'm at voter registration events, you know, I can usually tell someone may be kind of, you know, are you registered? You ask them, are they registered to vote? And they may be a little bit hesitant to answer. If I think for some reason it might be they have disqualified, I try to take him away from the group, kind of get to them privately. And I'll just say, is it you can't register because you have a felony conviction? And I'll say, yeah, and then you can get into the discussion. But again, if you get them away from other people and kind of do it privately, ideally, if you're depending where you're doing the drive, if you have a separate room or something where you can talk to them, that's best. But again, try to keep that information. And the last thing I'm going to tell you, sometimes you go through this list, say you're great, they can register. I've had them, they go to the board of registrars and the board of registrars says, nope, you can't register to vote. We found out the board of registrars has a little bit different system. They don't have Aliquot, they have a different system that just, it's kind of condensed and it says either they have a felony or not. And it may say, yeah, it's this particular one, but it may not be, it may be in the past, it said if you had I had a case where it was attempted first degree robbery, which was not disqualifying in the past. The board of registrars saw first degree robbery, so that is disqualifying. So we had to go back to the board and part patrols and get them to clarify. So even a case where you know, we've had cases where we think someone's good to go, they go to register, the registrar says, no, you can't register, and we have to get involved. So again, there is sometimes wrong information in the system. And this is my last slide, my advertising slide is getting the word out about voting rights restoration. Again, in 2024, we're still finding a lot of people out there that don't realize the moral turpitude laws have changed. We have very good skill set to be able to do the analysis and help people. Where we need help is getting out to the people that need this kind of support. We're trying to start to partner with groups like certain churches seem to be good at reaching out to people and finding people. So again, we have the skill sets to do what we need to do, but we need help getting out, getting the word out, and getting in touch with people so we give them the information. And with that, I'm going to shut off my screen and take any questions.
Hey, Bryan, before we take questions, could you go back and talk about the buckets now that you went through the HB 100? To talk about the 3 buckets that we're doing with rights restoration, and then also talk about the services that are, if we work with the network, we provide a lot of services with if someone needs assistance as far as filling out forms and doing the things that would help someone get their rights back.
Okay. The first one, the 3 buckets. Let me get the first bucket is someone, I think what we're talking about, someone that has one of the old, what I call disqualifying felonies that meets the requirements to serve. We're continuing to process those as we were previously. Is that what you're talking about, Kathy?
Yeah, I guess what I was thinking, what we're doing is saying if they're clearly don't have any of the new ones, then we know what to do with them.
Right. And that's basically the old ones we think we know if they meet the requirements for moving forward with the serve, or if they have the pardon case, we would go forward with that. If it's one of the new ones, we're just setting it aside. And what's the third bucket is they don't have any of them. They don't have any of the old or new ones. I say just go ahead and process it, tell them they can register and help them register, at least that.
Yeah.
And so far, and I think it'll be a while till we run into it. We haven't run into any issues with that were new issues. In other words, the registrar coming up and saying, "Oh, that's now disqualifying. They can't register."
Yeah, I think one of the biggest thing is if there's any question that we think one of the people we're trying to help may have one of the new disqualifying convictions that goes into effect on October 1st. Right now, the law says October 1st, then we are not registering them. Even if they don't have any of that other list, if they have one that's on the new list, then we are not registering them on the advice of our counsel at Campaign Legal Center, because there is a real potential that, we don't want someone to put themselves at risk of, of possibly getting crossways with the, Secretary of State. If they've already, there's already enough questions already with the way the law has been written. So I just wanted it to be clear that we've got a clear path if it's like it the old list, but it's not clear if they're on the new list until we are actually not just the league, but there's other organizations that may be suing Alabama over this law. But right now we're trying to find a way to proceed so that we can help people get registered to vote.
Yeah, and I say we, the Campaign Legal Center has sent and asked the Secretary of State for better guidance. I think that the deadline we asked is coming up pretty soon, but the Secretary of State, I don't think is under any requirement to answer us in a certain time period. So right now, taking that approach.
In the meantime, that's why it's really good for people in the field to refer back to Bryan and the others on the ALACORT, on the experts that we have. So to make sure that we give the best possible advice and help the voters. But Bryan, if you could go back and talk about, like, for instance, filling out the serve and filling out the other paperwork and mailing it to the citizen or to the volunteer, I think that would help. I think that would help them know what we provide.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we have people. If you want to do it, we'll get you the training. You feel comfortable, you can do it. But if not, we have people that are trained that like doing it, are very good at doing it. So if we find someone that needs a serve application, especially, we can get together and help them. Basically fill out the form for them, mail them the form because they have to sign it, and then have them submit it to the Board of Pardons and Parole. And if we do that, we usually we try to remember to follow up again at that 44-day mark, because and that's what the law says it has to. We want to keep it moving. We don't want them to just sit there. Am I missing anything, Kathy? I want to make sure.
No, I think the main thing is I wanted folks to know that with that referral form, when you fill that out, if they need a serve, then the people that are going to be working with you or directly with the citizen are going to do the legwork of analyzing ALACORT. They're going to fill out all the paperwork, and they're going to send a packet with all the materials that the person would need to submit in order to start the process of getting their rights restored. If they still owe fines and fees, then they'll give you a report on exactly what it's going to take for them to be able to get to the point where they can apply for a serve. And so, Bryan and his team are they have experts who can do that, which I think is really makes it a lot simpler for the people in the local leagues when you're out doing interaction with the public. Then this gives us a real good way to leverage and get, help more people. So I think that's to me, a really big benefit to the local leagues.
And unlike, I'm going to get myself in trouble now, Kathy, I apologize. Unlike absentee voting right now, as far as, there's no restrictions with us being able to provide them all envelope stamps and send that to them. Maybe the next legislature they will, but right now, again, it's totally opposite. We basically stopped absentee ballot stuff. This stuff we're continuing pretty much like we were. This
is absolutely no restrictions on us being able to do what we've been doing, except for the fact if there's any if there are any convictions, not charges, but in actual convictions that are on that list, then there, we've got concerns until we get clarification or the state gets turned around on their law, because we actually think there's we may end up suing them, but right now we're not suing them until they give us, at least clearance that we can do what we're doing until October 1st without worrying about voters being put at risk. And but all that to be said, I think the main thing is if you find someone that needs rights restoration, you need to pass it over to Bryan and his team, and let them process it. The Birmingham League has a lot of Birmingham and Tennessee Valley, we've got people at our local leagues that already are able to do the aliquot analysis, but Bryan, I'm not sure which other local leagues have members. I think the East Alabama League has some folks who are who have access to aliquot, but I don't know beyond those three. Are there others?
There are others, and I'll be honest with you, I'm bad with my Alabama geography and where members are located, which leagues they belong to, but there are a few scattered. I know there's some Montgomery. I think we have at least one in Auburn. I think there's at least one down in Mobile, but don't hold me to that.
I don't. Yeah, I think we do have someone in Mobile, but we also have one down in Dothan. But in general, if someone goes to a league registration event and you don't have them with you, that shouldn't stop you from helping someone that needs their rights restored.
Yeah,
because you got this process.
Yeah, that's really why I developed that forms, because you just get them to, I would recommend if you're doing a voter service event, have some of those forms, get them filling out, and I say just get them to me. I can't remember. There's an email address and a text number on the form, which somehow magically shows up with Kathy, and I get a copy of it, and then we'll get it to someone to help. So the biggest thing where we need help, I think we have a tremendous capability. It's trying to get connected with the people that need the support and that's where you can really help us when you're out doing the voter services events.
All right, now questions. Any clarifications or questions that we need to make?
Yes, this is Leonette, and I need to understand what the time limit is between when this law was passed and October the 1st, 2024. What does the law say about when it affects a general election? How many months?
6 months. There was about 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, there was a ballot amendment to prohibit any changes to election laws within 6 months of elections. And
so when was this bill signed by the governor? Late May.
It was right in the last week of the session. And so it violates their constitution. But right now it says October 1st, which is not a valid date when you look at the 6-month prohibition.
Thank you.
And
Bryan, you might want to drop your email in the chat.
Okay.
And then everybody can reach out to you with their questions. And this recording will be out there, and then you can reach out to Bryan. And if you want further training on other topics related to VRR, like more detail, if you want to become an expert, it's like you said, it's not impossible. But with all the uncertainty right now with this HB 100, it is going to be a little bit nebulous right now. That's why it's we're trying to make it simple by doing the 3 buckets so that we can keep moving forward.
And we do have, we'll periodically do, I say, live in-person training, which is Zoom these days. And we have recorded the training, and we can send you a link to watch the recording, but we know the recorded version is out of date. We're going to have to update it. And we haven't scheduled any live training yet because to me, there's too many I'd rather get answers to some of the questions first before we do more training. So there will be opportunities in the future, but I don't know exactly when yet.
And I guess I'm going to say this and just say that I have not told Dana I was going to say this before I said it, but she is agreed to work with local leagues to help the local leagues develop VRR capabilities. And so that is sort of like almost, it's like it dovetails real nicely with what Bryan's doing as well. So I don't know if you want to say something, Dana. I put you on the spot and I apologize, but we can follow up later if we need to.
No, I'm happy to help. I'll put my email address in the chat. And if any local leagues would like me to come to one of their meetings or do it over Zoom and discuss this further, I'm happy to do that. I'm located in Birmingham, so we can either do it virtually or I can drive wherever you are. This is important work, so I'm happy to do it.
All right. And Kathy, there's a couple of questions came in. I'm going to answer one of them. I'm going to leave one for you. But okay. The NAACP, that's a good question. We are in the process. We've just started working with our Limestone County chapter, and we're going to set up a formal agreement with them. But they're nonpartisan, so yeah, they said they have a bunch of people they need this kind of support for. So we are working with NAACP. I guess and then I need to be careful, especially with Kathy on the line. But the big thing is working with nonpartisan organizations. So if there's nonpartisan organizations out there that you think would be a good person to partner with, yeah, we're all for that. And I'm going to let Kathy answer the question.
Just to put a little bit of a organizational spin on this is, when we look at nonpartisan organizations, we will set up an MOU basically to protect the data sharing, to make sure we're both acknowledging the fact that we're handling sensitive data and that we're going to treat it, appropriately to respect the privacy of the individual. And it's not like we know we do. It's just formalizing it so people who are volunteering with us know that. We are not able. One of the things we absolutely cannot work with organizations that are associated with political parties or, basically any partisan groups. And so that's we won't go to trainings that are sponsored by partisan organizations, and we won't partner with them either. And that's why this is why it's really a great thing when there's so many groups out there like NAACP and SPLC that are nonpartisan. It gives and the Deltas, the AKAs, all the other fraternities and sororities, all of these groups are out there, and there's student groups too that are nonpartisan, and we work with all of them. There's a group at Tuscaloosa that's doing rights restoration that we work with, in Greater Birmingham Ministries. And as far as voter drives, Roger can tell you, and I know the other leagues are the same way, is we partner with other nonpartisan groups, and local leagues especially partner with nonpartisan groups to do voter drives all the time. And that's making us stronger by working together. Let's see. Let's see. All right. And by the way, Janine, the chat is saved. So this is being recorded, I've got it, and I'll save that file. So the only thing we were going, and yeah, Alabama Rise. Now, let me just tell you one of the things, and I am really proud of the League of Women Voters. You know that, but one of the things that I find really one of our strong points is a lot of organizations, they've got members, but they're not necessarily organizing voter drives. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter. Some groups like SPLC I have never seen them do voter drives. They do a lot of organizing for lobbying and advocacy stuff, but they don't have members. They have an organization that does a lot of lawsuits. They do a lot of organizing to get things changed, but we've actually got a member base that is out there doing events, trying to get people lined up and ready to vote. And I think that to me is that's part of our superpower, I call it, you know, that we're able to take all of the folks and the work that we do, and our members are out there making it happen. But that to be said, you know, SPLC is an excellent organization, and I hope that helps. And P, I think you've got some student chapters, so you have students, but most of the people I come across are not, they're paid employees.
Kathy, did you want me to just real quickly touch on those guidelines?
Yeah, I don't think you need to, I'll drop the link to it in the chat, but just talk through the fact that there is one.
I just put a copy of the document on, can you see that? Just the top.
Let me go back. Yes.
And just, Kathy, want me to touch me real quick. This is from the Secretary of State's website. So I like it just a little bit there, because one time it was funny. We had done 4 days at a college worth of thing. And I showed up at the registrar's office on the 4th day with some app and got kind of chewed out about, well, why are these so late coming in? And I was like, well, guidelines from the Secretary of State says I got 5 days, so I'm actually a day early. Anyway, this Kathy, I think, said she'd send this document out. The top portions are there, and I think Roger covered all that, so I'm going to talk about it. But the biggest thing in there that says completed voter registration applications should be submitted to the appropriate county board of registrar office within 5 days of the voter drive being held, unless the voter registration deadline is an earlier date. So I think, and that seems to be good guidance, is to get those there within 5 days. And say, unless you're close to the election, you want to get it in before the cutoffs Roger talked about. And they also have a note here: the completed voter registration application contains confidential.
Can you shrink that a little bit? Because or scroll down. Yeah, scroll down. That'd be good. Not shrink it.
Okay. And it says the completed voter registration application contains confidential information and should not be duplicated. Again, I think we've touched on a couple different times, but again, this is PII and stuff, so just be careful how you treat it. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about this at the end. I mean, it's got excerpts, I think, from the voter's guide, which helps with voter registration, a lot of the same questions. But Roger mentioned at the end, I don't know if I can turn it on, but there's a cover page which has the information. They said that, they would like to have a cover page with the name, address, and phone number of the voter drive group and the number of registrations to be submitted. So this is a good way just to keep track. You did a voter registration particular day, the information, how many, I assume usually we hand deliver them, at least up here in North Alabama, we're usually pretty close to the registrars. And again, how many you did and just cover them. But I like to use that as a guide, just to make sure that we're staying within the Secretary of State's guidance about how to do a voter drive. So we're getting near the end of time, so I'm going to stop talking about that and I guess answer any other questions in general that they may have for Kathy.
Yeah, and I'm going to share for next month. But yeah, if people have questions, just go ahead and raise your hand. Now that I've gone full screen, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get back out of that. All right. Are there any questions? If you want to unmute and come off, because I'm not seeing.
Kathy, I put one in the chat. What is the group in Tuscaloosa somebody mentioned?
I'm trying to remember. I think it's called, is it Return My Vote? Or it's, there's a group that is it's part of the University of Alabama, or University of Alabama Tuscaloosa has a student group that's doing rights restoration, and I cannot remember their name. Dana, do you have it right offhand?
I'm pretty sure it's called Return My Vote.
Yeah.
And if you, I was looking on my desk to find, but I can't put my hand on it. If you just Google Return My Vote, it'll go to their website. And what's cool about what they do is a voter or a person trying to register can interact with them online. So, or they'll schedule a phone call. But they're really doing really good work. Return My Vote.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was gonna, let me stop share for just a minute. I was just gonna mention that there is a texting campaign that Bryan can talk a little bit more about, but we work in collaboration with that organization as well as Greater Birmingham Ministries. Do you want to just for just a minute, and then I'll show that other slide again. You're on mute.
This is a good one. If you like sitting at home and doing the stuff, there's a system. CLC runs ads on social media. People fill in just basic information, which is basically their name and phone number, so we get in contact with them, and then we set up a texting, what they call a texting campaign through an app they have, and you will get a thing, and you converse with them by text, which sometimes makes it very difficult. You may go back and forth a whole bunch, but you basically, the first question is, do you have a felony conviction you think maybe disqualifying? And say, yeah. You can ask them what it is, and you can do basically everything I talked about, but do it online through text. And that way you can help people. Again, it's just another way to reach out and try to get in touch with more of these people that need support. What am I missing about that, Kathy? Dana does a lot of that. If you have any comments, Dana.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that what's nice about that is, again, you're able to interact with people in their time frame. So it's not that they have to show up at a voter registration drive from 2 to 4 on a Saturday. You know, we text them, they text us back, and sometimes the conversations could go on a couple of days. But the cool thing is we're reaching them at a time that's convenient for them. So it's been a real delight to work on this campaign.
Mm-hmm. We started doing that, the texting campaign during COVID, because it was an election year and we were working with Campaign Legal Center, and basically we came up with working with Campaign Legal Center. We said, what can we do? And we've got to reach people. And it really, we ended up having a huge number of people that we were helping, and it's just continued to keep going, but it's going to take more than texting, but it is texting so important, and doing it, having people who are volunteers that can pick it up and do it from home is great. But what we'd like to do also, I'll mention one more thing, and then I guess I need to wrap it up, is if there are organizations like NAACP or other organizations that are out there trying to reach people who are disenfranchised, who know a bunch of people who need help, a church, if they've got people they know need help, then we've got the ability, if you got a list of names that you can give to Bryan, that that they want help, not just, they think they need help, but if they need help, then he could put it into a campaign on this same tool, and we could work it just like that. And, to do an evaluation of a list. So there are options, but the main thing is we're trying to be flexible and work with other organizations who may be out there in the front lines and they know people who need help, and we can be their back room. We can be your back room, so to speak. All right. So I'm going to share the slide for the next month, and then I'll share this when we come back, but I wanted to, I'll send it in the slide package, the video package. Next month, we're going to have training, and Roger, who is going to be doing this training for us, really appreciate that. And we're going to cover some more topics, voter ID requirements and free voter ID. We're going to talk about the election dates and the deadlines. And then we're going to talk about this important topic of verifying your voting information. And what we want to do is to build skills and make sure that everybody is operating off of the same base. And so, if we pick up a topic in August, we'll come back in September with maybe another level, or else a whole different topic that is more appropriate for the election season that we're in. And so, anyway, we'd love to get your feedback on whether this has been helpful to you, and at the right level. And thank you, Roger, and thank you, Bryan.
Thank you.
So we're going to close it out now. And just when I send out the video, if you got any comments or feedback on things you want to hear, then just let us know. Have a good afternoon.